All right, fourth graders, finishing up the model of our first informative writing assessment. Yesterday, you remember in class, we talked about that after you're finished taking notes, then the next step will be reading the directions for part two, which is going to, in a little more in depth, explain what you're going to be writing about in your 5-paragraph essay. And remember, we discussed that the assignment is to write an informational article about Neanderthals and their development. So the topic we've been focused on the whole time. And so after you do your notes and you read the directions for part two, remember in class we talked about the next step is going to be answering 3 text-dependent questions, which we kind of scanned over yesterday. And these, it's important to answer these text-dependent questions really carefully because this information is going to be really helpful to you when you write your essay. And it's going to really make you think about the information and start to organize it. And then we talked about after the text-dependent questions, the next step you'll go on to is your plan. You're going to take your notes and you're going to look for the most important information and start to organize it here in your writing plan, or you may call it a T-chart. And when you do this, remember you're writing this in Tarzan talk for your yellows and reds are Tarzan talk. For your greens, your NVF topic, sentence, and projected plan, you can literally leave the letters NVF there. You don't even have to write your NVF on your writing plan. For your topic sentence, you don't have to write a complete sentence. All you have to do for that is you can write what your topic is or what you're supposed to be writing it about. So here we are in my best kindergarten printing. Remember, you're going to be writing about Neanderthal development. And then your projected plan, you don't have to write out the full sentence either. You're just going to write what your 3 yellows are going to be in your T-chart, what your 3 paragraphs are going to be about. So remember, if we're writing about Neanderthal development, we want to do 3 paragraphs that illustrate how they were developed. So what's one way that Neanderthals were developed? That's right, with their survival skills. All right, so your first yellow could be survival skills. Sorry about my awesome printing. Right, so that's your first yellow. So that also means you could put that in your projected plan, but you don't have to write it in sentence form. Sorry, I'm actually writing at an angle, so it makes it even more messy. All right. For the next one, what could be another way that Neanderthals showed their development? Yep, with their appearance. All right, they talked a lot about Neanderthals' appearance. And then what would be, of these 3 choices I'm going to show you, what would be the best choice for the third yellow? Yep, definitely ways of life. All right, how they lived as Neanderthals, what they did. So now that we have our 3 yellows, sorry, let me also put them here in my projected plan. All right. By the way, as I'm writing this, the reason you don't have to write the greens in full sentences because the step after this, which we're going to talk about, is taking your T-chart to sentences. And so you're going to talk out your sentences with a partner, or if you choose to write your sentences yourself, that's where you're going to put these into your own words. So you don't have to write anything in your T-chart in a complete sentence. Maybe your conclusion you can, but we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so after you list your yellows, so basically we're finished with our introductory paragraph for our plan, right? We can use our projected plan to write our yellows because it's the same thing. Now we have to put some details down that support or give examples of their survival skills. I can't talk. Their appearance and their ways of life. All right. So what are some what's one example of a way that they had showed survival skills? Yep, we talked about this in class too, right? Hunting. So you could put hunting. Another one could be how they controlled fire. And if you wanted to put a third one, you could talk about how we talked about this in class too. Some of you brought this up, how they migrate to warmer climates. Now, when you actually do your T-chart or your sentences, you want to explain each of the reds a little more. You don't want to just list them. And I'll talk about that when we go to sentences. You don't want to just say, the ways that they showed survival skills are by hunting, controlling fire, and migrating to warmer climates. And then you move on to the next yellow. You don't want to do that. You want to explain each. So if your first red is, one way they showed survival skills is by hunting, period. You'd want to put another red in here that gives an example of what they hunted or how they hunted, okay? Same with controlling fire. If you say that another way they survived is by controlling fire, you want to explain how that helped them survive. Well, it could keep them warm. It helped them cook their food, all right? So you never want to just have one red by itself. I almost like to call it a big red and a little red. So every big red has to have a little buddy with it, which gives an example or explains the red, okay? And so we would keep on doing the same thing with appearance. Right? If appearance is our next paragraph, which explains how they were developed, what is one thing you want to talk about with their appearance? Yep, that they were muscular, right? Okay. What's another thing that you'd want to talk about which helps describe their appearance? Yep, we talked about their height and weight. Okay. And then maybe you want to talk about, you could pick something else if you want. By the way, you don't have to pick 3. You could stick with 2, right? If you could put a third one, like they had large eye openings, so they had good vision. But you could literally leave it as 2 big reds and just explain more, right? So if your first red was one significant quality about their appearance was that Neanderthals were very muscular. And then you'd want to elaborate on that. You'd want to explain that again with a little red and talk about how they were stronger and they had strong hands and arms, things that they talk about in the article, right? And then if another sentence is, that males and females had very specific or average height and weight. So maybe you go on and give an example. You explain that males were average 5'7", 170 pounds, and females were, whatever it said, I forget, 5 feet, 145 pounds. Okay, so you always want to explain your reds. And then for ways of life, in other words, things they did in their life to show they were developed that don't fall under appearance or skills, or survival skills. So maybe remember it talked about sewing. Okay, that's a way of life. The fact that they shared a common language shows that they were developed, right? Or that they lived in groups, right? And so, again, your T-chart is very important because this is where you're going to organize your information and pull out the most important information to support your topic and show how Neanderthals were developed. So this is a really important step. And then when you get to your conclusion, I'm going to explain what you do for your conclusion. Because there's a specific way you can write a conclusion. Because some kids just end it with one sentence and say, clearly you can see Neanderthals were developed. But that's more of a third grade thing. We're going to go on and you're going to write a 3-sentence conclusion, kind of like you write a 3-sentence introduction. And I'm going to show you in a separate video when you get back from Thanksgiving how to write a good conclusion. All right. Or maybe I'll do it Friday if we have time. All right. And then I think that's it for today. I was going to keep going, but I'll show you in Friday's video how to go from T-chart to your sentences. and sentences to a final draft. I'm obviously not going to go through every single sentence or the entire final draft because you'll be sitting here for 30 minutes. But that I'll show you the last two steps in the writing process then. So before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a super, super hard question that's very important about this whole writing process. And then after you answer the question, you can let the video end.